Hello friends, today I'll be making a video on Colreg Part B, Section 2, Rule number 14, 15, 16 and 17. Let's get started with rule number 14, head-on situation. An examiner may ask you to quote, so it's better to remember that there are 3 points. So one way is if you can just remember it as 4 minus 1 is 3, so there are 3 points. And if we go through the logical sequence, obviously in a head-on situation, what you are supposed to do, that is point A. And when will you consider that there is a head-on situation? That description is part B. And C is saying that if you have any doubt, you must consider that such a situation exists and act accordingly. So let's go through each point and also see a clip explaining that. So point A is when two power-driven vessels are meeting on reciprocal or nearly reciprocal courses, so as to involve a risk of collision, each shall alter her course to starboard so that each shall pass on the port side of the other. And here's a small clip explaining two power-driven vessels meeting on the reciprocal courses have altered to starboard and they are passing clear. Just remember, head-on situation, it clearly says when two power-driven vessels. So no other vessel can have a head-on situation which is not power-driven. The next point says, such a situation shall be deemed to exist when a vessel sees the other ahead or nearly ahead, and by night she would see the masthead lights of the other in a line or nearly in a line, and or both side lights, and by day observes the corresponding aspects of the other vessel. So this part basically clarifies when does the head-on situation exist. The other vessel has to be right ahead or nearly ahead, and by night you will be able to see both the masthead lights in a line along with both the side lights, and in the daytime you will see the corresponding aspects. And now you can see on this clip there is two masthead lights in a line and you can see both the side lights. So if at night you see this situation right ahead of you or nearly right ahead, that means you are in a head-on situation. And now the final point, when a vessel is in any doubt as to whether such a situation exists, she shall assume that it does exist and act accordingly. So this part removes the ambiguity. If you see something right ahead of you and you are able to see the masthead lights in line or nearly in line, and then you are not sure, then you assume that this is the case and act accordingly. Let's talk about rule number 15, crossing situation now. And you have to remember, again, it's talking about two power-driven vessels. When two power-driven vessels are crossing so as to involve a risk of collision, the vessel which has the other on her own starboard side, she shall keep out of the way and shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, avoid crossing ahead of the other vessel. So basically the rule says if you have a vessel on your starboard side which is crossing, you take action. But if the vessel is on the port side crossing and there is a risk of collision, then you are stand-on vessel and other vessel will take action. Another idea you can keep in mind whether who is the stand-on vessel and give way vessel. You can think of it like this. At night, when you see a vessel crossing, if you are able to see their red light, then as you usually do during a traffic light, you see a red light, you take action, you apply brakes and stop. And at sea, you keep out of the way of the other vessel. But if you see a green light, that means you're safe, you're clear, you can just keep moving. Now there are certain trick questions that are asked during the MMD orals, at least in India. Then a surveyor will put a crossing vessel right ahead of you and tell you, you see this vessel ahead of you. What will you do? Then if without confirming whether there is a risk of collision, if you answer him, sir, I will give one shot blast and alter course to starboard, then he will cross question you. As per which rule? And if you say rule number 15, he will confirm, how do you know rule 15 applies? So normally at that point where you're already stuck, you have to say, I was assuming that there was a risk of collision. The point is that risk of collision has to exist for crossing situation to exist and rule number 15 to apply. Surveyor may also say, okay, this is the vessel crossing your bow at 5 miles. What will you do? At that point, you can easily say, sir, I will keep my course and speed. Vessel is already 5 miles crossing my bow. It's clear. Then he may further reduce the distance. He'll say, okay, 4 miles, what will you do? Again, nothing. Then he may ask 3 miles. And when he comes to 2 miles, then you again have to consider what was the standing order of your master. You can say that master's standing order requires that I maintain a bow crossing distance of 2 miles or more. So to keep it safe, I will alter to starboard, one shot blast. And here's an illustration. There are two vessels crossing each other. The vessel which is able to see the green light is going straight. The vessel which sees the port light of the other vessel alters to starboard. So the vessel which has the other on her own starboard side is altering course to starboard and passing astern of her. So this is rule number 15. Now let's talk about rule number 16, action by giveaway vessel. Giveaway vessel is the vessel which needs to take action to keep out of the way of the other vessel. And rule number 16 specifies every vessel which is directed to keep out of the way of another vessel shall, so far as practicable, take early and substantial action to keep well clear. So this rule is quite straightforward. If you are required to keep out of the way of another vessel, just take early and substantial action. These are the two keywords: as early as possible and substantial action. Now that we have discussed rule number 16, action by giveaway vessel, now it's time for rule number 17, which is action by stand-on vessel. You may question why there is a requirement of such a rule, because rule number 2 says nothing will exonerate any vessel in case something goes wrong. So a stand-on vessel also is given a responsibility to avoid collision, and the responsibilities are under rule number 17. Rule number 17 has 4 points, and when you know the number of points in each rule, then the chances of remembering those points becomes easy. So the trick to remember that there are 4 points, you can use it as action by stand-on vessel. The title of the rule itself has 4 words. So 4 words in the title, so 4 points. So let's go in the logical sequence. Point A says, where one of the two vessels is to keep out of the way, the other shall keep her course and speed. A part 2 says, the latter vessel may, however, take action to avoid collision by her maneuver alone, as soon as it becomes apparent to her that the vessel required to keep out of the way is not taking appropriate action in compliance with these rules. So point A is basically the objective of this rule. It's saying that if there are two vessels which are involved in a risk of collision, then obviously one vessel is normally a giveaway vessel. Then the other vessel, what she needs to do is maintain her course and speed. But if while maintaining her course and speed, she realizes that the giveaway vessel has not taken appropriate action as required by her, then she may make a maneuver to avoid collision. Basically, this is the initial objective. First, that you maintain your course and speed. Then you may make a maneuver to avoid collision. Then the part B says something similar to part A too, that when from any cause the vessel required to keep her course and speed finds herself so close that a collision cannot be avoided by the action of giveaway vessel alone, she shall take such action as will best aid to avoid collision. The difference between point A2 and B basically is that in point A2, the stand-on vessel takes action as soon as it is apparent to her that the other vessel is not taking appropriate action. Part B says that if you did not take this action and from any cause you already find yourself so close that now a collision cannot be avoided by the action of giveaway vessel, then you take action. These two parts are like a legal clarification where you have been told that first you take action to avoid a collision as soon as it becomes apparent to you that a giveaway vessel is not taking appropriate action. However, if you did not take an action at that time, and now the situation has escalated to a point where a collision cannot be avoided by the action of giveaway vessel alone, then again you are not relieved of your obligation to take action, and then you take the best action to avoid collision. And then part C says, a power-driven vessel, when taking action in a crossing situation, in accordance with subparagraph 8.2 of this rule to avoid collision with another power-driven vessel shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, not alter course to port for a vessel on our own port side. Again, there is a clarification that crossing situation is applied only to power-driven vessels, and the rule says that when it becomes apparent to you that the vessel which is required to take an action is not taking sufficient action as required by the rules, and you as a stand-on vessel if decides to take action as per part A2, then if the circumstances of the case admit, do not alter course to port for a vessel on your own port side. And here is an illustration of the rule. The bigger vessel as required by rule number 15 was the stand-on vessel. But as soon as it was apparent to her that the small vessel has not taken the action to keep well clear of her, she has taken an appropriate action as required by rule number A2 and as required by part C, not altering to port for a vessel on her own port side. And the logic behind this rule is, if in the middle of any maneuver, the giveaway vessel navigating officer wakes up and sees that there is a crossing situation developing, he may just alter to starboard. And in such a situation, if the stand-on vessel alters to port, there will be easily a collision. Thus, it is advised as per rule number 17C that not alter course to port for a vessel on your own port side in a crossing situation. And finally, the last part, D, which is saying no matter what this rule is saying, it does not relieve the giveaway vessel of her obligation to keep out of the way. I hope this was a useful video for you. If you have any feedback, comment or suggestion, then please write below. I thank you for watching and all the best for your exams.